Well, I guess we're right on 12:30, so why don't we get started? I'm Ron Montgomery. I'm a board member of the Alliance for Retired Americans, also a member here at Pauline Manfredi 9662, so coincidentally we're meeting here today. But I want to thank Dave and all the post members for making the post available to us. While we're on that, if you happen to notice on your way in, there's a wonderful new ramp and steps, handicap accessible. The story behind that is Home Depot donated all of the materials and the labor to build it. So, needless to say, you have any things you need to buy for home improvement. I know I'm going to get in trouble here, folks, but go to Home Depot, okay? Mary Compost, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome you all here to our post. This being the week of Veterans Day, in which we've honored all of our men and women that have served our country with courage and valor. We thought it was fitting that we have this meeting during this time to talk about some of the issues that veterans are facing. Before we get into that, I want to list some of our co-sponsors, members of the Alliance and representatives of different groups. Iowa CCI, we have a representative here as a member of our group. Iowa Citizens Action Network, okay. Iowa Federation of Labor, South Central Iowa Federation of Labor, and Progress Iowa. And we thank those groups for helping us sponsor this event today. Many of the issues that are facing veterans today are many, of course. We've asked them to serve us, put their lives on the line. They have demonstrated tremendous amount of courage and honor in doing so. We owe them all, not only today's veterans, but going all the way back to World War I and World War II. We probably would not be meeting here today in this hall or anywhere else, for that matter, if it weren't for the veterans of America. We owe them a tremendous allegiance. Having said that, in order to pay homage to them, I think we have to look at some of the issues that veterans face. Okay? Not the least of which is this thing they call the chain CPI. Okay, that Congress has been bantering about in recent months during these budget talks. Now these budget talks are getting ready to strike up again. Well, what is this chain CPI? You know, I'd heard about it, I'm sure many of you have, and I don't know how many of you really have a firm grasp. If you're like me, you probably did not have a firm grasp of what this thing means. Okay. I think to understand it, we have to break it down a little bit and talk about the components of it. The CPI, what's the CPI? Okay. And to do that, I think we have to take a walk down memory lane here, and I'm looking around the room and there's a lot of people that can probably relate to a lot of this, but the CPI came out of the early 70s, okay? It was a time when there were no adjustments to our Social Security benefits or our veterans benefits. Anyone on a fixed income had no cost of living adjustment, no means of it. As you recall, back in those days, the Vietnam War was winding down. Inflation was extremely high, off many years double-digit inflation. If you were fortunate enough to be working, and perhaps you had a cost of living adjustment with your employment, well then you managed to stay abreast of some of these inflationary increases. If you did not, if you were a person on Social Security benefits or a veteran under disability or a surviving spouse, dependent children who had lost their loved one in battle, then you had no means to keep up with the inflationary spiral we were on. So at that time, Congress initiated what's called the CPI, Consumer Price Index. Okay? It's a difficult thing to try to understand, and I'm far from being a Harvard School of Economics graduate. You have to be to understand all the intricacies of it. But basically what the CPI does is it takes a list of goods and services that people say that they purchased over a period of time, okay, and it established a base. The following year, it's always after the third quarter of the next year, they take a look at those goods and services and see how they had the prices have increased. If they have, that's compared to the base or the index, that's CPI, and thus that's the cost of living. Okay, that COLA, if you will, or the cost of living adjustment, is then applied to the Social Security benefits, our veterans benefits, our disability benefits, etc. Okay. That's called the CPIU because the technical name of it is the Consumer Price Index for Urban Wage Earners and Clerical Workers. Whew. But anyway, that is the base or the standard that we have based our cost of living off of since 1973. Okay. Now what is this change, CPI? What does that mean? Where does it come from? Well, once again, you really, as the more I've read about it and talked to others about it and researched it, it's really a hodgepodge of things that goes into this calculation. But basically, the idea behind this change CPI is if a price of a certain product goes up, then you're probably going to buy something cheaper. Okay? Cost of beef goes up, you might buy chicken. You know, cost of cheese goes up, maybe you're going to substitute peanut butter, etc. Which is all well and good, but the real problem with that is there are no substitutes for medical care and medical care costs. For those of us that are retired on Social Security, veterans on disabilities, anyone on a fixed income, one of the number one cost items is the medical cost. Okay. Not only the price of doctors, hospitals, treatments, prescription drugs, etc. There are no substitutes for those things, right? I mean, if you're going to go see your doctor, they're going to charge you X amount for something. You're going to go to another one that's going to charge less? No. You know, it is what it is. So you either go to that doctor, you buy that prescription, or you don't go. Okay? That's not an option for us, is it? Not to go. You know, for our retired Americans and men and women that we have asked to do so much for us, that's just not an option not to have medical coverage and treatment. So, a big, big problem with that change CPI is that. Okay. How does that, needless to say, using that basis, the change CPI has a lesser rate of inflation. In other words, your Social Security benefits are going to go up less, your disability payments are going to go up less, benefits are going to go up less. All of those things that are tied to that CPI are going to go up less because this is a different formula with less emphasis on the person receiving the benefit. I'll give you an example. For those of you that happen to read Jan's article today in the ARA newsletter, these figures are going to sound familiar. Okay? The average benefit for a veteran receiving Social Security was $15,768 in 2012. $15,768. Okay? Using the change CPI would significantly reduce those benefits. A veteran with average earnings who retires at 65 would get a benefit cut of $588 at age 75, $1,025 at age 85. By the age of 95, when Social Security benefits are probably needed the very most, that person would lose $1,450, a reduction of 9.2%. Okay? Now it gets worse. The situation would be even worse for the veterans who have been injured in the line of duty. Okay? A disabled veteran who started receiving VA disability benefits at the age of 30, of which there are many. As you well know, we've had a couple wars going on for some time here. We've got a lot of young men and women who are coming home and are disabled. Okay? A disabled veteran who started receiving VA disability benefits at the age of 30 in 2012 would have his or her benefits reduced by $1,425 at the age of 45. At the age of 50, $2,341 at the age of 55, and $3,231 at the age of 65. That's a massive reduction in the benefits that those veterans would receive. Back in March of this year, in the Senate, the Veteran Affairs Committee, chaired by Senator Sanders of Vermont, an independent, by the way, whatever that might be. Anyway, that committee went on record, submitted an amendment to the Senate, which it was put forth by Senator Sanders and the committee against changing how COLA is calculated, which would result in significant cuts to benefits of veterans. In other words, this changed CPI. Okay. That amendment was voted on by voice by the Senate body and unanimously passed. Okay. A couple things there. We know when a voice vote is taken, there's not much accountability there. Would we have been happier had that amendment been voted on by roll call? Well, sure. They'd have to stand up and put their big boy and girl shoes on and be accountable. But nonetheless, the committee took the stand and submitted the amendment. It was passed. But I find it interesting, the comments of Chairman Sanders at the time that this amendment was passed. And I quote, "The time has come for the Senate to send a very loud and clear message to the American people. We must not balance the budget on the backs of disabled veterans, many who have lost their arms, legs, eyesight, defending our country. We must not balance the budget on the backs of American soldiers who have already sacrificed so much for us in Iran, Afghanistan, and countless other wars. Nor on the backs of the widows, widowers, and children who have lost their family members defending our freedom." Speaking on behalf of the ARA, that is certainly our position as well. We could not have put it any more clear and concise and to the point. Okay. Interestingly, groups in support of this amendment, okay, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, AMVETS, American Veterans, Disabled American Veterans, Paralyzed Veterans of America, the FLCIO, ARP, and the National Organization of Women. Obviously, there's a lot of support in standing up and saying no to this changed CPI idea and proposal. A lot of support. Okay, where are we now? Well, we know that the budget talks are heating up again. We have a senator, one of our two senators, Senator Grassley, sits on that budget committee. We have with us, and Midge, help me out here, I believe we have some petitions with us today that that we can sign and get to our legislators and our senators and say, we stand opposed to anything that will reduce the benefits of the men and women who have served our country, Social Security recipients, surviving spouses and widows, we say no. We won't stand for it. Not on their backs.